Greetings, salutations, respect, and love, all you cats and kittens out there in Progland. Yeah, I am Scott. You're in the Prog Corner. You knew that already. So today, we're talking about the Grammy Awards. They just went on Sunday night, and I know none of you guys watched it, so I watched it for you. It was a big night for Lizzo, big night for Harry Styles. Wet Leg, I am a big fan, so I'm so glad they won not one, they won two Grammys. Adele, of course, had to win a Grammy or two. But I was there for Sam Smith, and yeah, I'm not going to sit around and talk about how much I love that song Unholy, but I really, really do. We hate the Grammys as prog rock fans. Yes, we do. It's just terrible. But has it been always this bad? And honestly, is it really as bad for prog artists as the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame seems to be? So we're going to dive into that. Just this past year, for example, the 2023 awards in the hard rock category, Brandi Carlile won, beating out Ozzy and Beck and the Black Keys and Idols. And then over in the heavy metal section, Ozzy won that one, beating out Muse and Ghost. So, there are actually some good bands getting nominated. And we're going to talk about the awards a little bit. This whole farce started in the 50s when they started the Walk of Fame in Hollywood, that whole project. And the recording industry realized a lot of their favorites were never going to get a star on the Walk of Fame. So they decided they were going to have an awards ceremony similar to the Emmys or the Oscars. They didn't know what to call it, so they had a contest. And one suggestion was the Eddies, in honor of Thomas Edison, but they went with the Grammys, short for gramophone, and that's how they came up with the name. Whatever. It's the Recording Academy of America. The very first awards presentation was in 1959, and they didn't even start televising this thing live until 1971. But how many prog bands have won a Grammy? Raise your hand if you know the answer to that one. Well, it's a little more complicated than that because a lot of the gray area bands, a lot of the bands that dabble with progressive have done fairly well, but pure prog artists winning a Grammy. Let's see, who do we got? Not a whole lot. 1987, Genesis wins a Grammy for the Land of Confusion video. 1984, Yes wins Best Instrumental for Cinema. 1994, Pink Floyd wins that same category for Marooned. And in 1988, very famously, Jethro Tull beat out Metallica for Best Hard Rock Heavy Metal Album. They actually split those two categories because of the controversy and Metallica crying and whining like little babies. Look, guys, you've been nominated 18 times and you've won 8 Grammys. Get over it, man. Jethro Tull, yeah, they deserved it. Certainly, well, probably not for Crest of a Knave, but they certainly deserved the accolades. And then you get into the modern era, and there have been some prog metal bands winning the Golden Gramophone Trophy, most recently in 2022 when Dream Theater won for The Alien. But there's been others. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But when progressive rock started out, it looked like the Academy was going to be kind of open to, those types of bands and awarding them and honoring them. In 1969, proto-prog songs Classical Gas and MacArthur Park both won Grammys. In 1970, Blood, Sweat, and Tears and Crosby, Stills, and Nash both won Grammys, so it's looking like, hey, they're listening to good music. 1971, the Beatles won their last Grammy. Chicago wins a Grammy. Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young wins a Grammy. And most relevantly to the 1971 Grammy Awards, not only was it the first one that was televised, but Emerson, Lake, and Palmer were nominated for Best New Artist. It's the only example I can find of a prog band getting nominated for that until about 12 years later when Carl Palmer once again finds himself in a band nominated for Best New Artist with Asia. Well, they lost in 1971 to Carly Simon, and they lost in 1982 to Men at Work. So that's kind of weird. But obviously, at the beginning of the prog era, critics weren't adverse to prog, and neither was the Academy. So what about those other bands bands. And, honestly, if you look at the nominations, a lot of prog bands have been nominated. It's just getting the victory that's really been problematic. We talked about Dream Theater finally winning in 2022. They actually had been nominated twice before then. The biggest snub we can talk about when you talk about the Grammys is the fact that Rush got nominated 7 times and they never walked away with a statue. Just really ridiculous. Pink Floyd was nominated 4 times. Yeah, they only won 1. Yes had been nominated 5 times. Yeah, they only won 1. Genesis had been nominated 5 times. They only won 1. Jethro Tull got nominated once and they won it to much controversy. Asia had 2 nominations. Baroness has 1 nomination. Between the Buried and Me. How about Frank Zappa, though? Let's talk about Frank Zappa at the Grammy Awards. Nominated 7 times with 3 wins. That sounds pretty cool. That sounds about right. More modern artist. Muse has been nominated 5 times. They've actually walked away with 2 Grammys. Kate Bush has been nominated a couple times. How about this one? I didn't know this. Peter Gabriel's been nominated for 19 Grammys, winning 6 of them. Rick Wakeman's been nominated once. He didn't win. Mike Oldfield was nominated once for Tubular Bells, and he did win. Outside of the rock sphere, certain jazz artists that have connections to prog rock have done very well at the Grammys. Pat Metheny's won 20 Grammys. Miles Davis won 8 Grammys, so in the jazz category. Some progressive artists have fared very well. Also looking over in the soundtrack area, Tangerine Dream got 7 nominations. Vangelis got 2. Neither artist won, so that's not cool. King Crimson has been nominated twice, no wins. Kansas was nominated once. Styx was nominated once. Supertramp was nominated 4 times. Steely Dan was nominated 9 times with 3 wins. But then we get to the curious case of Tool. Yeah, they're prog related, whatever you want to call them. These guys have been nominated 9 times and they've won 4 times. Starting in 1998 with Anima, 2002 for Schism, 2007 for 10,000 Days, the artwork, and then in 2020 again with Tempest. So they have been very successful at the Grammys. So, they're not just ignoring progressive bands. They're really not. As the problem was in the 70s, everybody kind of soured onto prog, so there were no nominations after that ELP nomination in 71. And then in the 80s, it's almost like the voters were like, I've heard of Yes, I've heard of Genesis, I've heard of Pink Floyd, let's give them a Grammy. So, it was almost name recognition more than anything else, because clearly by the 80s, prog was not really a thing. And now you get into this modern era where they've split heavy metal and hard rock. So in that heavy metal category, you are getting quite a few progressive acts. Like I said, Tool's won 4 Grammys. Iron Maiden's won 1. Ghost has won 1. They've been nominated a couple times. I mentioned Muse has won 2. Mastodon's won a Grammy. Dream Theater won a Grammy. And then in that category, there's been numerous progressive bands that have been nominated. Between the Buried and Me, Rammstein, Gojira, Periphery, and Baroness have all been nominated. So the heavier end of the prog spectrum is being well represented at the Grammy Awards. It's just that our beloved genre, particularly the capital P prog stuff, just isn't selling. You're not going to get a Grammy nomination for a record that sold exactly 800 copies. It's just not going to happen in a rock category. Maybe in the Hawaiian music category, maybe you can get away with that, but not in rock music. So just the way it's structured is really going to be problematic for prog rock bands to win a Grammy unless you're on the heavier end of the spectrum. And that's okay, man. That's fine. We don't watch the Grammy Awards, to hear prog rock. We watch it to laugh at the pop artists who we dislike and make fun of. And that's the fun of the Grammy Awards. Like I said, I watched it so you wouldn't have to. Shout out to all the winners. It is the highest honor that that any musician could ever have is to win a Grammy. So when those artists are talking about how it doesn't matter, it matters to them, man. Of course it does. You labor over your art for years and years, and getting a little recognition would probably feel real, real good. So, my hat goes off to all the winners. Sunday night, it was a great show. But anyway, I just want to tell you guys how much I appreciate your continued support. I love you guys. Peace in the Middle East. God save the king. And, prayers for Turkey, prayers for Syria. Those people need a little bit more than our thoughts and prayers right now, probably. But my heart goes out to them. Anyway, we'll see you guys maybe tomorrow. Who knows? We'll find out. Peace. Again with the button thing, man. What is going on? Just like yesterday, I can't find the button.